everybody. My name is Dr. Sophia Taineri. I'm with the Undergraduate Research Hub, and today we're talking about prestigious scholarships. We'll be highlighting some spring deadlines coming up in the next couple months. And we have a couple other guests here with me today that might be speaking. We have Maggie Thatch, who's with Oasis. Maggie, would you like to say a word?
Thank you, Dr. Saineri. Hi, everyone. My name is Maggie Thatch-Morshed. I run the writing support program over at Oasis, and I'm excited to have come together with Dr. Saineri on this because we understand that the application process is very overwhelming, very multifaceted, very complex. Not only do you have to get the logistics, which is why you all are here, but also once you get started thinking about what you're going to put on your application, what stories are compelling, how you're going to put your personal statement together, getting recommendations, getting nominations from people such as Dr. Artis. It is a multi-step process. We know that it can feel overwhelming, so we're really here to guide you through every step of the process. So I'm here as kind of like anything that has to do with writing, I'm happy to help students with. So I'm glad that you all are here.
All right, and our other guest here is Dr. David Artis. He's Director of Undergraduate Research Hub and the Dean of Undergraduate Research Advancement. He is also the campus nominator for the 3 awards that we're talking about today. And so I wanted him to introduce himself briefly, say hello, and maybe say a few words on nominations.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As you've just heard, this is a really long process, but I think you should enter it with this great deal of confidence. That's going to get you through quite a bit. I think you have all worked hard to be here. I'm sure most of you are involved with research and you have already made some contacts, and it's going to be a matter now of, as Maggie said, putting this together in a way that really presents you. And let me just emphasize that all the people I've worked with, the students who've been successful, I think the common factor in all of it is that they are the ones who come out sounding the most like themselves, right? They are not the ones who try to write the perfect application and, wind up with what's essentially a list, but they talk about the things that are important to them, about their history with a certain kind of research project, or why they think what they will do will have some sort of an impact. So bear that in mind, that the process of applying for these and being successful, and maybe applying to these as you go forward, because if you do have a research career, there are always going to be applications to submit for grants, for admission to certain programs or special fellowships. So this is just a part of a research career. And what they're really looking for is the actual person, the authentic person, not a list of accomplishments that don't give them an insight into why those accomplishments are so important to you. So let me say a word or two about nomination, since I am the nominator for these awards. And so the first thing you should know is that I'm almost always interested in what people bring to me. I mean, what kinds of projects you all are doing. I'm very supportive because I want to be a cheerleader for your future, but I'm also always taking a step back because I'm not looking at them for myself. I really see my position at this point as being representative of these foundations or agencies. So I think, well, I'm in touch with the Goldwater people, I'm in touch with the Beinecke people and the Strauss people, and I sort of know what they're looking for in an application. And so bear in mind that you're writing something that is a real match for this opportunity. You're not writing it because this name will sound really good on your resume. You can be, but you're not going to get it if that's your motivation. You're writing it because the foundation, the agency, that group is telling you, this is what we're looking for. and you are writing to say, I understand, this is why I'm the match, right? So I do kind of take myself out of it to the extent that I will read something and say, oh, this is great, this is really exciting, and then there'll be a little check, and I'll say, oh, but is this what Goldwater is looking for? Like, this person is really smart, maybe brilliant, but this person wants to be a doctor, primarily a clinician, and Goldwater is looking for researchers. Now, the Goldwater, just to be clear, they say if your aim is to get an MD, that's terrific, and you would be eligible, but you should get that MD in the cause of research. So let me say this. First of all, if for whatever reason I don't nominate you for a particular award, you should not be discouraged at all. It's probably just because I think I have this responsibility to the foundation or whatever it is I'm representing, to give them my best thought about the people who are the closest match to what they have said clearly that they're looking for. So that's the first thing, is that, as soon as I meet with people, I really want you all to succeed. And if it's not going to be through this avenue or through this award, we will continue to work with you and find something that is a better fit, right? The other thing, though, is that this is a process. And just before I came to this meeting, I had a meeting with another student who's very interested in the Goldwater, and we had a meeting that lasted half an hour. And I would say, if you're interested in any of these awards, we should be meeting at least once, at least for 30 to 40 minutes, just so that when it comes my time to nominate someone, I can say, this is not a superficial reading of the application that's getting me to the point where I feel confident in nominating the student. Most of the people that apply for this award, whether I nominate them or not, we meet 2 or 3 times, and those are meetings. I also tell everyone that I'm available for email conversations or responses. So really invest in talking to me, not as my role here, but you should think of me now as the first part of the Goldwater Scholarship Foundation, or the first member of the Beinecke Committee, or the first member of the Strauss Committee. That's how I see myself now. So when we meet, be prepared to talk about those particular opportunities. And I'm happy to talk to you about all kinds of things, but when it's time to decide whether this is an application that you want to put in the effort to submit, let's be prepared to talk about that. Because, as I said, even if this turns out to be okay, well, maybe not this one, I know that there are others out there that we can keep talking about. So in any case, I'm hoping that this will be the beginning of a regular communication that we have. So I'll stop there for now. And just, I have to leave fairly soon, but I'd be really happy to take any questions right now.
Yes, so feel free to pop questions into the chat if you have any. I know we haven't really gotten to the awards, and we will explain everything. I just wanted to have Dr. Artis say hello at the very beginning. Also, as a note, I understand, of course, this is week 10. So if you need to leave, feel free. We are recording all of this, and we'll send it to anyone who has registered. And so that will be true of also our future workshops that we're hosting in the next few weeks. But yes, if there are any questions in the chat for Dr. Artis regarding nominating, please feel free to raise your hands. And as I said, I know it's pretty early on, but if we don't have anything else to get started with it with regards to questions, maybe we can get into the actual awards themselves. And of course, if you have questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat. We will address them probably closer to the end, but if there's something relevant, Maggie might interrupt me and we can have a few questions in the middle if it makes sense too. So getting into our scholarships, we have the Goldwater Scholarship. This one is named after Barry Goldwater, former senator. And all three of these awards, as I will note at the top, they do have nominations required. And so UCSD takes applications from students here at UCSD, and we select a handful of those students that get to go on to the next stage in the process at the national stage. And that's why these are called prestigious scholarships. The person who does do the nominating is Dr. David Artis, and that's true of all three of the awards as well. For Goldwater, our deadline where you have to have all your application materials complete is January 12th of 2024. So that is not that far away, a little over a month. And this includes your letters of recommendation. For us, as the campus nominators, Dr. Artis will have to submit his selection of who he wants to nominate by January 26th. That deadline is not as relevant for you, the students, in terms of materials to submit, but just so you know, this is when we decide who will be moved forward in the competition at the national level. And so the award is a $7,500 prize for those students that are selected at the Goldwater national level. I believe they also still do honorable mentions, but those do not come with a prize at all financially. It is just an honor that you can mention maybe perhaps on your CV or resume. They do award about 300 nationally, and our campus can nominate up to 4 students for the Goldwater per year. We also have an additional student that we can nominate if they are a transfer student. And this year there's a new thing where we can actually also nominate another student who might be a student veteran from our university. So up to 6 potentially, but at least 4 students can be nominated. And given the deadline is coming up very soon, I do highly recommend you start that application now, or as soon as you finish with finals, perhaps you can look into it. One thing I did not mention on here, Goldwater does have a pre-application, which you go onto their website to complete. This is pretty basic demographic information, and then you'll need to include your letter writer names, and Dr. Artis needs to agree to that nomination, approve that pre-application. And Dr. Artis, feel free to mention what else you would like to say.
So yeah, just a word about Goldwater. So one thing, the pre-application consists of, there's basically a profile, and you'll be asked a couple of fairly basic things. And then the letter writers should be mentioned, because I have to then get in touch with the letter writers and confirm that they are going to write the letters. I usually give you have to have your materials ready by January 12th. I usually give another day or two for the letters to come in, because those are things that you can't control. It's an unusual application in the sense that there will be some of it you have to upload into what's called the backpack, and that would be your research essay and the application. We would then upload a transcript. If you become a finalist, we'll get the transcript. In the meantime, please submit an academic history. An unofficial transcript will be fine. And then if we decide to nominate you, we'll get the transcript, the official transcript, and then I upload that, and then I upload the letters of recommendation, and then I will do the nomination. And I usually write a nominating statement for each student. Sophomores and juniors, if you apply as a sophomore, it can be renewable. So that's something else to bear in mind. We think there will be about 300 applications, and anywhere from 14 to 18, 300 awards, anywhere from 1,300 to 1,600 applications from across the country.
Great, thanks, Dr. Artis. You were getting into my next slide already, where we talk about eligibility. But just to go over those a little bit more detailed. So for citizenship, you are required to be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or permanent resident. As Dr. Artis mentioned, you should be a full-time sophomore or junior. And I believe the sophomores can get that renewed for a second year. Juniors only get it for 1 year, which would be your next year. The website on Goldwater says there's a 3.0 GPA minimum. In our experience at UC San Diego, students that apply and get nominated are usually 3.8 and above. So that's why it's mentioned as a preferred GPA. But that doesn't mean we won't go below that, but that's just what's been the trend at UC San Diego. And of course, an interest to pursue a research career in natural sciences, mathematics, or engineering. And so natural sciences can be life sciences, physical sciences, those areas. But the key part of that is a research career. So no matter kind of which direction you end up going, if you pursue additional educational training, you will want to be doing something in research as part of your future plans for your career.
Right. And can I just say one thing about the
Mhm.
research essay? Because it came up in the meeting I had just before this. Most of the students who apply will write a research essay about a project they've completed, but it's also possible to write an essay about a project you haven't done yet that you are designing, and you can walk the reader through what it would look like. And we've had students win with both approaches. So I would say most students write about a project that they have completed, and that way they can kind of tie it up neatly. But really, it should be a project that you're most excited about. And we've had students who have written about things that they are either in the process of doing, or projects that they think they will do. And just to show that you've thought that all the way through, obviously not to a conclusion, but that you can highlight the strength, and that kind of research essay will be the proposed methodology, and then a discussion about what results could mean. And we've had, as I said, we've had students who have written those kinds of research essays when, just as we've had students when with work that they've completed. So if you do have a research experience, at least one of your letters should be from someone who supervised you in that research experience. And then the other letters, they don't have to be from faculty members. Obviously, if you've had more than one research experience, you can get letters from people associated with both. But the letters should definitely be about the potential you have to succeed in your research career. So the letters themselves should also touch strongly on research.
Maggie, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to just ask this clarification, Dr. Artis, while you're on this topic, since I want to help out with any writing component of these application processes, which is the research essay is different. They're not asking for a research proposal, right? Like they're not asked to follow the guidelines of that genre. It's really an essay about the research topic they want to do. Is that right?
I would say, first of all, it's a student's essay, so students can make some choices. But I do think that since they have given students the opportunity to write about anything they think is significant, the essay should start with a statement about, this is the topic, this is why it's significant. And students sometimes forget to say that. And so someone can read this and say, why am I reading this? Because it's worth the moment to have that as an opening sentence or a second sentence. Right? And then I think if you are writing about a completed project, it's good to say, here's the sequence, right? Here is the design of the experiment or the project. Here were the methods, here are the results, here's the discussion and conclusion. I think that kind of clarity helps the reader. I think if you're writing about something that hasn't happened yet, again, you'll spend a little more time on why this is significant, and then, set forward a kind of design for, the project. It should not be a personal statement. Or a statement of purpose. It really should be focused on a research problem. So so that's what I would say. If it's about something that is completed, it doesn't have to be necessarily a scientific journal article, but it should have, ways that someone reading it can clearly see, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
And then just to clarify, Dr. Artis, I believe there's also some short answer questions that are kind of more
Right,
personal
right,
statement
right,
style.
right. So you do get a chance to say some things about, who you are, right? I mean, it's a multi-layered application. They have the research essay, the letter is what I call the narrative of the application, and then the transcript, and then the nominating statement. So
Yes. and we'll definitely send students over to you, Maggie, with regards to the writing aspects. Just for clarification, with students that are applying, the research essay honestly is probably easiest to share with your research mentors that you have, because they are specialists in your field and can tell you if the research that you're describing, the question makes sense, the way you're talking about it is clear and is within the bounds of what is expected within your field. Of course, within the natural sciences, mathematics, and engineering, that can be a little bit varied depending on your field. But I think that those can be a little bit jargony sometimes. And with having your research mentors look over it, they can kind of give you a sense of, does this sound correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Go
would
ahead.
just say also, don't be afraid to use graphics. It doesn't have to be all narrative. And some people are concerned about that because you have only 3 pages and you have to walk people through it. But actually, as I always say, a good graphic illustration can actually save you some language. So don't be afraid to use that if that's the clearest way of putting forward for the reader, the necessary information.
And as a note, 3 pages do also include references. So if
Yeah.
you are pointing out references, that is a limitation. So keep in mind that as well. And so at the bottom of this page, you can see a couple of our recent winners over a past couple of years. I think we have, on average, about 1 winner of our nominees per year. So we've done fairly successfully with this. Sometimes we get 2. And I think one year we even had 3 a couple of years back. So you never know, you could be that next student, and we're hoping to have more Goldwater applicants and winners, especially transfer students and student veterans. But moving on, we do have another award to talk about. I wanted to share with you all. This is the Donald A. Strauss Scholarship. And so this order that we're talking about, everything is chronologically by deadline. So this one also requires a deadline, a nomination, and Dr. David Artis does nominate. Our deadline for students to submit all of our application materials will be February 21st, 2024, and that should be by 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And our nomination deadline for us to select our top 3 students to nominate will be March 6th. But for your application materials, it should be February 21st. The award is pretty generous. It's a $15,000 award, and that's for your public service project idea that you may have, as well as tuition. And so 8,000 of that goes towards the project. 7,000 of that can be applied to your own tuition and books. If for some reason you feel you don't need that for tuition and books, you can always allocate more of your budget towards the public service project. But many students also enjoy having that pay a little bit more of their tuition if they don't have that covered. So that's a really nice award. On average, I think the Donald A. Strauss Foundation awards about 10 to 15 per year, which on average for our institution, we get about 1 per year as well. Getting into the requirements and eligibility. So for eligibility, we are looking for full-time students that are either sophomores or juniors, basically not graduating this year, because you'll need the next year to be working on your public service project. Typically 3.5 and above GPA. There's a little bit of wiggle room on that one, but I think what the Strauss Foundation says is you should have a GPA in the upper third of your class, and you should be doing well enough that doing this project will not affect your grades too much. And they're looking for someone who has some interest in a future career or want to volunteer in public service. Part of their selection criteria is that demonstrated interest in public service, outstanding leadership potential, and then of course submitting an innovative public service project proposal. So
Okay.
this is something that has not yet been done, but that you want to enact and put together in the next year or so. I like to call it kind of like a Kickstarter to get your project off the ground.
Right.
So requirements for the application briefly are submitting that project proposal up to 4 pages, including a timeline, a 1-page personal essay, a 1-page resume, 2 letters of recommendation, and then if applicable, if you're working with a partner organization, a letter of support. And we'll have that transcript uploaded for you, same as Dr. Artis mentioned previously. It will be provided by URH. Anything else you wanted to add in, Dr. Artis?
Just a couple of things. One, this is an award where students have often done international projects. So you can do this anywhere the award takes you. Students have gone to Armenia and Sierra Leone, but they've also gone to Chula Vista. So really be driven by the project itself. And think about whether the award will enable you to do things like travel or establish contacts with people in other countries. But as I said, it can be local, it can be international. You definitely, when it comes to the application, a couple of things to bear in mind. They, as Sophia said, they want these to be innovative. They don't want to pay for another organization's project. So you can do a project that's a partnership with someone else, or a project that grows out of another project, but your project should have some clear lines that show how it's grown out from the project, not that it's just repeating or enlarging what someone else is doing, but actually is its own thing. It's related, but it's not subservient to the other project, if that makes sense. And obviously, if it's completely your own idea, that's a great thing too. And it can be STEM related. It can be, we've had students submit things that are civic minded, like voter registration projects or health projects or artistic projects. As long as you can talk about the impact on a defined community, I think that's a really important part of it, to be clear about what people you're serving. We've had people work with high school students. We've had people work with new immigrant communities, with rural populations, with domestic violence people, with people trying to buy health insurance. So this is really one where you can think about a kind of personal motivation, or something that you see, that you think something you see in society. And again, it could be a society across the Atlantic, it could be, or across the Pacific, as long as you are strongly motivated to make a difference there. A word or two about the application. Make sure that you have something that shows a succession plan, because they also don't want to fund something that will end when you graduate. So try to show that this will carry on, and that even if you aren't at the helm, there will be other people who are. And most people like to write, I think you kind of have to write an executive summary as part of the 4 pages. And it's always a good idea to write that last, so that you can make sure that you tie up everything else in there. So those are my comments about Strauss. But again, I've stayed a little longer than I was planning to, but I'm happy to take a couple of questions. But unfortunately, I will have to leave soon. So, but I'm happy to take questions here, or over email, or in a Zoom meeting.
Sounds good. Thanks very much, Dr. Artis. We will send questions your way as we get them. Feel free to raise your hand or put them into the chat. And just a quick note, the 2 pictures of the students here are UC San Diego students that have won over the last few years. And so one, I think, did a project with electronic medical records in Fiji. And then another one, do you recall, Dr. Artis, what Audrey's project was?
Audrey was the one who went to Armenia. She set up, tried to establish in 2 villages a kind of remote telemedicine service.
Right.
So yeah, it was very ambitious, and she was able to at least lay some groundwork for it. And that was really, again, something, she was really motivated to go to Armenia, and the award allowed her to do that.
Exactly. There's a lot of great information on the Donald A. Strauss website, so feel free to explore that, and we can certainly go over that in more details in one-on-one meetings if you would like. But just wanted to wrap that
Yeah.
up, and I'll
Can
move
I
on.
say one
Oh,
thing
go ahead.
about one other thing just about Strauss? Strauss is one of the ones where students who are doing research find that they can actually apply that research into a public service environment. So it's not unusual for somebody to be interested in both the Goldwater and the Strauss, because if someone's doing research on, as we had a Goldwater applicant a few years ago, early detection of autism. That person had a really interesting idea about making that technology available to underserved people. So it would have been a great Strauss project as well, right? So there are ways in which these kinds of awards can connect.
Great. Yes, thank you very much. I do see there's a question in the chat, but we'll probably hold off on that for just a little bit. But I do want to get to the last scholarship, the Beinecke Scholarship, just so that everybody can get a quick sense of what this is. So again, this is a scholarship that does need nomination, and Dr. Artis will be the person who nominates. Our deadline internally for you to submit all your materials will be March 15th, 2024. For us to select our nominee, the deadline would be March 29th of 2024. There are up to $35,000, or the award is up to $35,000. 5,000 of that comes in to kind of support you during your senior year as you're applying to graduate programs. And the goal is to look, and the other 30,000 of the 35 is to support you in graduate school. And it is looking for students who have plans for advanced degrees in arts, humanities, or social sciences. And part of what they do not include is graduate study in neuroscience. So with eligibility, we are looking at US citizens or US nationals, including from American Samoa or Northern Mariana Islands. You should be specifically a college junior. So that means basically you're graduating with a bachelor's between December 2024 and August 2025. You should have a documented history of need-based financial aid, preferably someone that has a Pell Grant, that has had a Pell Grant. I apparently had this twice on here. A 3.6 GPA is preferred, and plans for a research-focused master's or doctoral program or an MFA in the arts, humanities, or social sciences, as mentioned previously. Requirements will include having a CV, submitted a statement of 1,000 words or less describing your research or creative interests for graduate study and career aspirations after you finish your graduate study. You will also need 3 letters of recommendation, and these do need to be from faculty members. You can submit an unofficial transcript, and then we will actually upload an official one if you are selected as our campus nominee. And for those that are interested in an MFA, there is an artist supplement that is expected for you to submit, maybe a portfolio or that sort of thing for those interested in an MFA. And then finally, a financial data sheet that will be submitted directly to the Beinecke Foundation if you are selected as our campus nominee. And as a note, I am saying nominee because there's only one that we get to nominate through the Beinecke Scholarship for our university. Anything else you want to mention, Dr. Artis?
A couple of things. One, and this goes for both Beinecke and Strauss, which is that only certain schools can submit nominees. And I think for the Strauss, they are all California universities. I think now there are 23. There was an original 14, and I think they've added 9 more. We were one of the original 14. I can't remember the number of Beinecke institutions, but there are not very many. So these are really, that's good, and that these are really elite scholarships. And also, unlike the Goldwater, you will not be up against 1,400 other applicants. Doesn't mean that they're any less competitive, but these are for particular universities. Yeah, so 120 universities for the Beinecke, but 23 for the Strauss, right? and anybody at all for the Goldwater. So these are competitive, but the Beinecke and the Strauss especially are pretty well defined. two things. They say, we say college junior, they say, you have to apply before your last year in college. So even if you are a senior, but you're not graduating, if you're going to be a 5th-year senior, you can apply as long as you're not graduating this year, right? So, and then just a word about the artist supplement. We've had musicians who submit the score for classical work, so composition, artists who, we had a woman we nominated some years ago whose work was Peruvian knitting, and there wasn't a way to send that, but it was a very traditional, very highly evolved kind of Peruvian fabric work. And so she was able to send pictures from one of her exhibitions. So, this is a time for you to show the kind of creative work. And finally, the data sheet that is sent along with the application from you. We do not send the data sheet because we, don't have the ability to go to financial aid, but that's for the student to do. So yeah, that's all I would say about Beinecke. Oh, and to say that the $30,000 works in conjunction with whatever your other aid might be. So it might be $15,000 for 2 years if you're in a 2-year master's program, or it might be allocated in other ways depending on what other kind of aid you have. They'll just do their best to make it last.
Yes, thank you very much. And so those are the 3 awards I wanted to at least bring up, give you some basic information about. Aside from just giving you details about the awards, I also wanted to mention some things to think about when you're selecting a letter of reference or letter of recommendation. Of course, first think through the application process. What are they looking for? In the case of Goldwater, they're looking for someone with a research career in mind. So you want to have people that can write about you and your interest in a research career. And so similarly for the Beinecke, their interest in graduate programs and being in the arts, humanities, and social science areas, those should be faculty specifically. That's what they ask for. For the Strauss, it's about public service. So it may not be a faculty member that's writing your letter of recommendation. That person may be someone who is more focused on your experiences as a public service person. Maybe you've done some projects before, or you participated in something that shows your interest in public service, so that person can identify and talk about your experiences. So it can be maybe a supervisor. It could be someone who you've worked with in a public service setting. So thinking about what is the application and who you want to ask may vary depending on each of these different awards. And then, of course, use those application materials to help you select those letter writers. And you want to share your application materials. If you're writing a personal statement, if you're talking about your interest in research career or graduate study, those things should also be shared with your letter writers so that they can kind of get a sense of, how can they help you and make your application stronger by weaving in pieces of your application into their letter as well. Oftentimes we suggest that you seek a mix of letter writers and kind of identify different roles, so they can showcase different facets of you. Maybe they're talking about you as a leader. Maybe they're talking about you as a thinker or a researcher. Maybe they're talking about you as a student in a class that you've taken, and so those different people can showcase different aspects of you. And so when you kind of say this person can talk about this aspect specifically, don't just internally talk about that. I think it also helps for you to even give them a bullet point list of some things that you think they could identify and talk about in your letter, so that you can kind of help them be guided towards what's interesting, what's helpful for the application that you're applying to. And choose people, of course, who know you well, but also help them to get to know you better. If you've heard of something called Coffee with a Prof or Dine with a Prof, we highly recommend utilizing those through your colleges. each of them can let you go and take your professor for a coffee. And it doesn't have to be a professor, but you can take them for a coffee, or you can take them for lunch, take them for dinner, and you spend maybe half an hour to go talk to them a little bit more about your interests, about why you think you're a good fit for that particular application. And so that's part of the process. Like Dr. Artis talked about, getting to meet with him for about half an hour. You should do that with each of your letter writers too, at least once. And maybe throughout the process, check in with them. If you ask them prior to this part where it says respect and no earlier, you should also ask them, can they write a strong letter of recommendation for you? Strong is the key word. And ideally, they are honest with you and straightforward, and they can say, maybe not. And if they're saying, I don't think I'm the best person to write a letter for you, respect that, and then consider going to somebody else. If you have questions about this, of course, you can talk with both me and Maggie about it, because I think we have a lot of good experiences that we can share with you and hopefully guide you on selecting those good letter writers. Also, you can allow that letter to be confidential. Let the professor talk about your grades, let them write whatever they feel they want to, and feel confident that, you won't know exactly what's being written in that letter. There is actually a form that you can fill out through UC San Diego, and I'll see if I can find a link for that. But that form says, I waive all my rights to see this letter, so it is confidential, and then they can talk about whatever they feel like. Ideally, if they say they can write a strong letter of recommendation, you have nothing to worry about. All right, so also please give that letter writer the deadline. Maybe it's an internal deadline that you give them a little bit before the actual deadline, but no matter what, give them a link to the website where the application has more information. Each of those different applications will have a site, and the letter writers will be uploading their letters separately, not through you, but through the application site. And then, of course, this is a chance to begin to recognize yourself as a professional. Be very professional with the people that you're asking, and just as we're talking about, respecting that no, or being, showing them all the different things that have them understand that you can apply for this, that you have all the prep pieces in place, that you are organized. All those different things are ways that can support you in this process. And a lot of times, whether you win this or not, a lot of students say the experience of preparing one of these prestigious scholarships can really help them just feel more confident in themselves. They take some time to think about who they are, what they want to do, who are great people to advocate for them, to be part of their application team, which includes the letter writers. But it can also be me and Dr. Artis and Maggie. We're all part of your team together to help you get this application in, and we're supporting you in that. So just some things to keep in mind, and we can talk through this more. And I think besides that, I just wanted to have a quick note. If you do have questions, certainly you can contact me. I'm sorry, I don't have Maggie's information on there, but we can include this in the chat, and we'll make sure we update it before we submit these slides to you all to have. But my contact information is here, Dr. Sophia Taineri. And you can also find out more information about all three of these awards through prestigious.ucsd.edu. For nominations, Dr. David Artis is the key person. And if you want to make any appointment with him, Mercedes Favors is his assistant, and she would be the person to reach out to talk to Dr. Artis. So just give her a few different times that might work for you, and she'll help select a time that works for both of you. And overall, our office is Undergraduate Research Hub. This is our UG Research email and website, ugresearch.ucsu.edu. And of course, Maggie is from OASIS. We have contact information that hopefully will be put into the chat. But I think we can stop sharing and maybe look into questions that our people may have that are here.
I wanted to jump in, Dr. Saineri,
Yes,
with
please.
just with emails. You might be thinking like, oh, I'm not writing yet, I don't need to reach out to LATS, but this is a perfect opportunity to make an account with us, make an appointment with us, because I think it is an art to put together an email, right? Also, like, when you're writing an email like that, you're asking somebody to be a reference for you. You're asking them for a favor, and something like just a mindset that I have is like, do everything in your power to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes to you. So I've received so many of these emails asking me to write a reference letter, right? But it's like, oh, can you write a reference letter for me? I was a tutor for you 3 years ago. And I want to say yes, but I don't know who, I don't remember. So if they had like given me some examples, or they had let me know what they're interested in now and how that relates to their previous experience with me, just like if they do the work and it's easy for me to say yes, then this process just got a lot smoother, right? But if you're making that person say yes, but can you jog my memory? What did you do again? What research did you do? When were you my student? When you force that possible recommender to do so much work, then it kind of loses steam, right? So that's something, that's like a way to think about the emails. And I did want to address Karen's question about what can you do to get started your first year? And you're like, okay, what can I do to set myself up well? So in terms of writing, I think this is something that all students should start if you're interested at all in grad school, because the personal statement is such a key element of your application, but so many people don't give themselves enough time to reflect on their experiences as a student, as a scholar, as a thinker, to write a compelling personal narrative. They're just focused on like, oh, does my transcript look good? Like, did I get the good grades? Which is important. But reflection in personal statement is what is going to make your application stand out. And too many times students don't allow themselves to do that. So I would say, Karen, as a first year, the experiences that you're going through, maybe you're volunteering, maybe you are the secretary at your, club or whatever you're doing, have a running journal of what that experience is. What did you think going to experience? What did you learn? What did you think you would learn? How did you grow? Just have like a Google Doc, however it makes sense to you, right? But like, kind of save all of these experiences. So then when it comes time next year for you to apply to Goldwater or Strauss or Beinecke, you could be like, oh, I have these 3 experiences. They're kind of related, and I can use these to put in a personal statement. You can almost be like, they could be like little modules, like this experience for Goldwater, this experience for Strauss, this and this for grad school. So just having that, because you've already put in the work of reflection, I would say that's something that I see that I wish I could tell students sooner in their educational journey, is like, give yourself that time to reflect and think so that you can express how you've grown as your time as a student. So that's something I would say could help you, could set yourself up well for these scholarships next year when you apply.
I'm going to add on to that a little bit. So as we've talked about a little bit with letters of rec, you got to have them. Some of these are 2 or 3 people that you need to ask. So with that, that means that you need to get to know 2 to 3 people that can maybe help you along that way. If you're thinking about being a researcher, start cultivating that relationship. It's not just, oh, I'm participating in research, but you get to know your PI. If you are working with a research mentor that's not your PI, then also get to know that person and talk to them about your interests, talk to them about where you think you might want to go in the next few years and also long term. And that way they can be much more set up for you if you want them to be letter writers for you in a year or 2 or 3. So that's things to think about too. And that can be people that are research related. It can be people in your classes. So getting to know faculty through your office hours, perhaps, and participating in those. And I think students, it can be very hard sometimes when students don't plan for this and they come to me in their 3rd or 4th year and they're like, oh, I need to get letter writers. I've got 2, but I need 3, and so how do you figure out that 3rd one? And so it's great that you're a first year and you're starting to think about, what do I do to plan for this? And so, yeah, getting to know those people that can be great advocates for you that hopefully will be letter writers, I think is a key thing as well. And then, of course, specifically for Goldwater, just research, right? Doing the research, getting to know as much as you can, getting the experience. This summer's coming up, and that will be a great chance for you to spend a lot of time in research potentially. So start thinking about what do you want to do this summer to set yourself up really well for that. So for Goldwater specifically, I think those are a few things to think about. There are tips and suggestions on the Goldwater website from previous winners. So that's a great place to look at too. Just to keep in mind, what else might be useful to think about as you go through the experience. But I think all the things Maggie said are really great to help you be prepared also for putting together those essays and personal statements.
And also, this could be a good time to start cultivating these mentor relationships. Request coffee with the professor, request lunch with the professor, whatever, dine with the professor, start building those relationships. So next year at this time, when you ask for a letter of reference, they already have experiences to build upon and write about.
Oh, and Maggie was just saying she'll include an email that has the recording and our contact information. We do have a flyer that hopefully Maggie maybe can find, but we do have more info sessions coming up. Hopefully you saw this flyer before, but it's in the chat right now. And so there are 3 more coming up. The one that's happening next Friday is for Goldwater specifically, and it's a writing workshop. And so that's a chance for you to focus on putting together your story, whether it's personal statement or the research essay, but it's just kind of thinking about pieces that go into that. So it's just for Goldwater. The one that's happening on January 9th will be a panel discussion. And both of those are virtual, by the way. The panel discussion will be recorded as well, and that will be with previous winners. And so we're hoping to have some Goldwater and Strauss winners. We haven't had a Beinecke winner in many, many years, so we won't have anyone particularly on that day to talk about Beinecke as an experience as a winner. But we may have Dr. Artis back if he's available to talk a little bit about just more for the Beinecke side of things as well. But a panel discussion, I think, will be great for students to ask questions and to learn from people that have been there before. And then finally, we will have a writing workshop January 23rd, I believe, for Strauss and Beinecke. And so those will be kind of concurrently going on. I don't know if they're going to be breakout rooms, Maggie. Is that the plan?
We were planning in person.
Oh, right, that's right, in
Yeah.
person. So we will be doing that, I believe in the large conference room of Student Center B. So yeah, we can break you out physically into 2 groups to focus on that. So, some things to keep in mind. Hopefully when you RSVP for this, you may also RSVP for a writing session and perhaps a panel discussion. So we do look forward to seeing you at those, but please also encourage your friends if you know of anybody to come join us. But we're still also open for questions. I know we have 6 more minutes in case there is anybody who has more questions specific to any of these awards. And we thank you for being here. I know it's week 10. Life is busy at this time, a lot of hectic things going on. So we appreciate you spending some time with us. So far, I don't see any questions, but yeah, Maggie, anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say that, Dr. Saineri talked about how going through this process is helpful for other application processes, right? Like grad school or whatever it is. And I just wanted to talk specifically about how it's helpful, because I think that when you apply for whether it's prestigious scholarships or grad school or med school or dental, whatever it is, it's multifaceted. And it really takes so much time to really just understand all the different facets. And you all are college undergrads, you're very busy. Quarter system is crazy fast. And it's really hard to find that time and that energy. It's like a psychological mental load, right? To just understand, what am I even doing? What is this asking of me? What are they looking for? All of that takes time, right? And that's why when Dr. Sai and I got together, we were like, okay, let's try to think of this strategically. What's this part? Logistics. Okay, let's take care of this. What's this part? Okay, writing. Let's take care of that. What's this part? This is the, it's, so that I did want to point that out. And I'm just happy that students are here to hear this, because that's why it's so overwhelming. It's not that you all are not worthy of these prestigious scholarships. It's that these things are like gatekeepers, right? And honestly, we don't have the time and the energy to figure it out, right? So that's why we wanted to take that mental, psychological load as much as we can and to parse it out so it's manageable. So I just wanted to I love that Dr. Sai talks about it will help you in other areas, applying for other things. But I just wanted to say I believe so strongly this process will help you. And here's why: because applying to anything, even if it's just like a job after a graduation, knowing how to understand what the job is, what the company stands for, what the values are, what you bring to it, all of that is strategic. It's strategic. How do you get confidence is that you understand what's being asked of you and you deliver. You have a strategy. So really that's what this process will bring to you, a sense of confidence. So, you'll notice that neither of us are like, if you come to this workshop, we guarantee you'll get the scholarship. That's not the purpose, right? But it's like, okay, this is a big thing. So let's take it step by step. Let's hear what you bring to this, and let's see how we can adjust this to you. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Maggie, I had a question, and thank you for bringing that up. The quarter system, it's totally something new to me. I'm a transfer student from Mesa College. I have 2
Absolutely.
kids under the age of 6. I am trying to juggle my life.
Yes.
And I really appreciate you mentioning all of that, because
Mhm.
it is something I have to take into account every single day, every time I map out my schedule.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know, because I'm interested in the Strauss. He mentioned something to keep in mind is a plan that would need to be something that would carry on even without me. So
Mhm.
am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, so the idea with Strauss is maybe you have a team, maybe you create a student organization or you participate in some other bigger organization so that if you graduate, there is a succession plan. There is maybe a vice president and a treasurer, that could take on, and next year they become president, even though you may not be here. That kind of idea is they would like to see some sort of plan so that it isn't just a 1-year project and that's it. They want that project to live. And actually, I think one of the awards that was given in 2000 is still going today, 23 years later, which is
Mhm.
amazing. And that's what they're looking for, are these kinds of projects that last and will be around. So yeah, keep that in mind, at least if that's of interest.
And
Yeah,
so that brings me to my next question. I mean, I don't know if it's for you, Professor Sophia, or maybe Maggie. Like, if I start to I would like to brainstorm and think about it. My overall goal is to help out my local community. I live down San Isidro, Chula Vista area, like sandwiched right between, and I notice a lot of things that I could be a part of that I could help.
Right.
So if I could brainstorm and reach out to you guys and
Yeah.
just, see what works and what doesn't. Is that an open thing for me to do? Can I
Of
do that?
course. Yeah, I would say maybe start with me. I at least recommend that, and we can start talking about that. And I've worked with a lot of students as they're starting to think about things.
Mhm.
I would say in the end, it's your decision what kind of project you want. But you want to think about something that can be enacted starting in April of this year and go through April of 2024 and go through April of 2025, because that's the time frame of Strauss awarding. And then beyond that, of course, they hope the project will continue on for years, hopefully. But that's the idea, is that's the defined scholarship period. A lot of that work can be done over the summer, perhaps. But it shouldn't just be like a 1 day, here's a fair and it's done. We want something that can span most of that year time frame, and you can kind of maybe put together some milestones for yourself. If you are selected as a winner for Strauss, as in you get the $15,000 award, they will match you with somebody from the Strauss Foundation who can mentor you. So you won't be alone in doing this all yourself. The nice thing with that is they have experience working with these Strauss winners year after year. And so they try to match you with somebody that has some interest and background similar to your project of interest. So they have a big board, and they'll work with someone on the board to have you be mentored throughout the process as well. But of course, this is your idea. You'll be taking that on. You'll be shepherding it. And so part of things, I meant to mention this earlier, but something that you can include for the Strauss, what do you call it, budgets, is you can pay people too. Like, say you need to have transcribers for whatever reason, or you need to hire some people to help you run a certain aspect of your project. That can be part of your $15,000 or really $8,000 allocation for the project. It doesn't have to be just you, but the idea is someone can still carry this on after you're done. So keep that in mind. But yeah, we can certainly talk more, no problem.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Time, I was just gonna say, use all your resources at hand. I run a writing support program, and you can make one-on-one appointments with writing facilitators. Talk to Sophia to get like a foundation, then make an appointment with one of my facilitators, throw around ideas, then go back to Sophia and be like, oh, this is what I was thinking, like that's definitely there for you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the support. I really appreciate it. I've always wanted to try to any of these scholarships, and I'm, it's out of my depth, and it's really nice to see that I have support here to at least attempt, and I'm going to do my best. So thank you.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
No, that's why we're here, for sure. And that's why we're trying to get the word out so you can think about it and start percolating, figuring things out over the next few months, because these deadlines are coming up. And we want to be able to support you as much as we can throughout this. Any other thoughts or questions?
No more questions in the chat.
Okay, great, thanks. It is 4:30, so past 4:30. We want to respect your time, of course, too. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and please reach out to any of us. Maggie has her email in the chat. Mine was earlier on the screen, but I can put it on the chat as well. And we can work with you. So looking forward to seeing you soon, and maybe next year if you're looking, in the future. But we will talk with you, whenever you're ready.